Hi everybody, I hope you're doing really well. My name's Mark McLean and I'm the Managing Director and one of the co-owners of Glassworks. The process of buying windows is a complex one. Next to your walls, roof and floor, windows are probably going to be the second, if not the most expensive single purchase that you're going to make. Over the past 16 years of working in this industry, I've been asked numerous questions about windows and doors and what the differences are between various systems. We've used the questions gathered over the past 16 years and we've put together this presentation, which we normally do at exhibitions, seminars or when we're meeting architects. However, we've stripped this one back, took out a lot of the technical stuff and really made it a basic buyer's guide on how you should really go about procuring or designing windows and doors for your new project. Unlike our usual videos that we put out, this isn't myself and Steph buzzing around the showroom and showing off our latest and greatest products. This really is a one-size-fits-all presentation that talks generally about glazing. It's not salesy and it's designed to be informative. So without further ado, go and grab a coffee, a notepad, sit down and we'll go over my buyer's guide on how you should go about procuring your windows and doors for your project. So as I said in my introduction, this presentation is usually something that we would give to architects, contractors and self-builders who are visiting home build renovating shows, self-build seminars, or we're doing continuous professional development or CPD presentations. However, because of the content and what it generally talks about, which is a holistic approach or holistic presentation to windows, we thought it'd be quite good to put it out there on the public domain. So as I said, my name's Mark McLean and I am the Managing Director and co-owner of Glassworks Architectural Glazing, based in Stirling in central Scotland. So a wee bit about the company. We're located in Stirling in central Scotland, about 35 minutes from Edinburgh and Glasgow, bang in the middle. We only work with Europe's leading manufacturers. We specialise in the sale of triple glazed products that can achieve U values below 0.8, and all the products that we sell generally have a minimum of 3 seals. We supply and install to trade and domestic consumers alike, and all of the products that we sell are independently tested. So my name is Mark McLean. I have spent 22 years in the architectural and construction space. I started my career out as an architectural technician, working in Stirling, and I worked on new build houses, extensions, conversions, renovations, council work, you name it, I did it. And about 16, 17 years ago, I transitioned into only working within the architectural glazing space, which is the industry that we're in just now. In that time, I've been involved with over 300 projects, varying in size from small scale domestic to large scale commercial. And in that time, I've supplied and designed well over 35,000 products. And I'm pleased to say that only a very small percentage of them have been double glazed. So to anyone out there who thinks that triple glazing is a fad, I've managed to make a living out of it for 16 years. So it definitely isn't a fad. In terms of my ethos, every project's different, as is the client's budget and end goal. I believe that a consultancy-led approach is key to meeting the needs of every project that we're involved with. And what I mean by that is generally, we need to sit down with people and have a discussion to find out the needs, wants and aspirations and end goal of that client. It's no good nowadays just, throwing together a quotation and getting it out the door just because it's for grey windows or grey doors or a sliding door. What is that sliding door being used for and what is the product being used for? That for me is the bigger thing. So we like to think of ourselves as consultants. My business partner is Steph Bell. He's a qualified architectural technologist with over 17 years experience. He trained with Hertz and Lang, who are one of the most renowned passive house designers and specifiers. He is a qualified passive house designer, and he's been involved in delivering over 150 passive house projects all over the UK, including the first in England, the first in Scotland, and the first ever certified educational facility. So he kind of brings a wealth of knowledge to the table as far as passive house and low energy buildings concerned. Steph's stable points are that whilst Passive House standard is recognised as the world's most robust and stringent construction standard, not all projects need to meet this criteria. Adopting the basic principles of the Fabric First approach, utilising the PHPP, which is the Passive House Planning Package, should be the starting point for any self-build project. So as a company, we have a couple of stable points. And when we talk about stable points, these are our things that we firmly believe in as a business, and it matches our company's ethos. The first is that triple glazing is not a fad. It's been around since the late 70s, and wherever possible, we should be, as a company and as people who are building energy efficient homes, we should be specifying triple glazing as standard. The cost difference nowadays is negligible, specifically when you're importing product from Europe. We firmly believe that there's no such thing in the window industry as an equal and approved product. Each product has its own pros and its own cons. And what we mean by that is that the industry has fell into this trap of a window as a window. If it's timber aluminium, it's timber inside, aluminium outside. And we're referring to the way the window is constructed or the materials that the window is constructed from, and defining that as the product type. And what I mean by that is that, you can't say a Casio and a Rolex are exactly the same just because they're a watch. They're very, very different products. And we'll get into that a wee bit further later down the line. And lastly, budget and costs shouldn't be a cloak and dagger subject. We need to know what your budget is so that we can maximise your opportunities and guide you correctly. This industry has a horrific reputation for ripping people off and wanting to take people's money. And we believe that a budget should be discussed. It should be an open thing. We should sit down, we should talk about it. And dependent on what your budget is, we should then be able to find a product that either A, meets that budget, or 2, is close to it. It's no good in someone coming into our showroom and we spend hours upon hours with them and hours of their time as well, not knowing their budget because they want to keep it a secret. And then when we put together the quotation based on the things that they like, they then can't afford it and the project doesn't go ahead, or we don't get the job. The whole purpose of discussing budget is so that you can get the right product or the best product for your budget. And we are rock solid on that. So for us, if you want to work with us as a business, then we're going to ask the big question, which is, what is your budget? And we're going to try and work around that. And that is to the benefit of us and to the benefit of you. So let's talk about the start of the purchasing journey, and when you first entered into this world of glazing or building or renovating or designing your new house. We all have to start somewhere, and the start of the process is very, very important. It's where you're going to learn about products and gain an understanding of the market, so that when you go into a window showroom, you're not getting blown away with terminology and hard salesman approach. You want to be able to spot that a mile away and run. So the start of the journey for us is a very, very important one. For us, we truly believe that you should do your research. So, in the first instance, go out and visit showrooms, go to shows and exhibitions like Home Building Renovating, Grand Designs, Build It Live, and troll the internet and go through websites. This is really, really important so that you gain an understanding of the types of products that are out there, and from that you should be able to decipher that A window is not just a window. It's not just a simple glass unit with a frame. So being able to go out there and see what's available on the market will naturally educate you into what's available and what you can do. And you might see something that you like, which you want to keep a mental mind shot of and save it somewhere. So using things like Pinterest and Instagram are really, really great tools. You see a picture with really nice windows or big glass units or slim sight lines, take a picture of it, screenshot it, save it in an album, make up an album that's dedicated to windows and doors. So that when you go and see a window company and you want to sit down with them, you can go, this is what I like, this is the kind of look that I'm going for. And then they can comment on that and offer you some guidance. Be the nosy neighbour. That's another thing. There's houses getting built all over the place these days, and it's a great thing to be able to, walk past the house and go, I like that, take a picture. Even better, go and chap the door of that person, say, look, I'm really sorry, but I love your windows, or I love the colour of your windows. What colour is it? Where did you get them from? And do some natural research and investigation that way as well, because those people have already been through the process. That you might learn something from them. Consider what's important to you. These are things like your non-negotiables. So when you go into a window company, you want to say, look, I'm open to suggestion. I am willing to listen to what you've got to say, but this, and this are things that I can't live without. I have stunning views looking out over my kitchen. I want that in one big window. And that's fine. We can accommodate that. You might just have to give up on something else. So decide what the non-negotiables are and take note of them so that when you go and see that window manufacturer, you can explain what these non-negotiables are to them. And then stick to your guns. Once you know what you like, design around it and budget to it. So what we mean by that is that, like we said before, you may have this unit or window opening which looks over the fields and has a beautiful panoramic view. That might be one of the things you're not willing to give up on, but be willing to get rid of some other smaller features, like, it could be that you had on your specification that you wanted electric openers for your Velux window in the bedroom. Be willing to get rid of that. You might have said that you wanted to have oak curtains throughout the house. Right, okay, that's a nice thing to have, but is it more important than standing at your kitchen every day and looking out over this view? So if you have non-negotiables, write them down and be willing to let other things in the build take a sidestep so that you can accommodate them. That's really important. See, feel, and touch. So one of the big things about when you go to trade shows and showrooms, the whole point of these is not only to meet the people that you're going to be buying from, but to look, see, feel, and touch the quality of the product. Look at the handles, look at the timber, look at the way the welds are on the PVC window, look at the miter joints. Test the product in the showroom. If it's a showroom product, it should be the best it should ever work. If you go into a showroom and it's not really working right, or it doesn't feel good, or the handle's a bit loose, or it's scratched, or the windows are dirty, that can give you a really good oversight into what that product's going to be like 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Our analogy is that you would never ever buy a sofa, from a shop without at least sitting on one or having a look at it and making sure that it's comfortable. And that's a purchase which is far, far smaller than your windows. If we talk about windows nowadays, the average purchase for a new build house being tens of thousands of pounds, you want to test drive and try that product out before you purchase it, because it's not something that you're going to change every 3, 4, 5 years. This is something that fundamentally you want to put in and forget about for as long as you're in that property. 25, 30, 35 years in some cases, longer. Also gain an understanding of the products that are out there. So, the big faux pas at the moment is UPVC. So we are big pushers of UPVC and UPVC aluminium product. Not because we love the look of it or because it's, we make more money off it. We push it because of the benefits that it has. Budget is one. So PVC and PVC aliclad are generally cheaper products. In some ways, they can be more energy efficient than some of the composite timber aluminium alternatives. Um, but fundamentally, they look exactly the same. If you use a UPVC aluminium product, it's going to look exactly the same as a timber aluminium product, be slightly more energy efficient, and potentially save your money. And that is only a good thing. Um, the other big thing is, we speak to a lot of clients who are told you want to have timber aluminium for your windows in your house. And that's great. We love timber aluminium windows. They're fantastic and they look great. However, they are the most expensive product on the market just because of the way they're made and the way they're put together. They are an expensive product. But timber aluminium only describes the materials that the window's made from. It is not a product description. It's not a brand. It's not a manufacturer. It's not a type. It's just timber aluminium is a loosely, used term to describe what a window is made of. And people seem to think that timber aluminium is the be all and end all a product. And when they put that on the drawings, they know that they're going to get the best product available. And that is could not be further from the truth. So understand the differences in timber aluminium products out there, because most, when you get the quotations back, only consider the cost. So when you get your two quotations back for product A and product B, and you look at them close down, you look at the bottom line and you think, right, that one's 25 grand, that one's 18,000. They're both timber aluminium clad, so I've got a like for like comparison. Well, that's not true. So when you go to these showrooms, look at the product, look at the handle, look at the gearing, look how it's made, see how it operates, look at the quality of the timber, where does the timber come from, understand all of that and take notes, take lots of notes, and you will then understand why some windows are more expensive than others. Before we kind of got into this part of the subject, we talked about, like for like, and one of the really, really common things that we can use as a comparison when we're talking about products, when we're talking about windows, is the analogy of cars and watches. So when people talk about timber aluminium windows as a product type, it is very much like saying that these two cars are exactly the same. So the one on the left is a little Jeep Renegade. It probably costs, anywhere between 28 and 30,000 pounds. Perfectly good car, does what it says on the tin. And then the product on the right is a Mercedes G-Wagon, probably anywhere upwards of 80 to 120, 130,000 pounds, depending on the specification of it. However, on paper, if you were to write a very, very generic script and description of these cars, you would basically say, okay, they're both black, they're both 4x4s, they've both got black wheels, they've both got leather interior, so they're exactly the same car. We both know that these are not the same car. The one on the right is far more expensive than the one on the left. And the one on the right is more expensive because it's more customizable, it's more bespoke, it's got, a hand-built engine, all these things, more detailed warranty. There's lots of variables involved in that. And the same can be said when you use like a simple analogy of watches as well. So if we said the same thing, the one on the left and the one on the right are exactly the same. Why? Well, they're both metal, they both tell the time, they're both watches, they're the same product. Again, the one on the left is maybe a 25, 30 pound watch, and the one on the right is, an 18, 20, 22,000 pound watch. Now, the one on the right, the Rolex, is, it's handcrafted, it's made in Switzerland, someone spent time building it, it's got a manual mechanism, it's automatic, it's got thousands and thousands of components that go into it, and it takes longer to make. The one on the left is a digital watch that takes a battery. Do they both tell the time? Yes. Are they totally different? Completely. And the window industry, using the same analogy, is exactly the same as this. Okay. So when people think timber aluminium, or they think, PVC windows, or they think triple glazing, they use that as a blanket statement and can basically just attach themselves to thinking that everything within that coverall is exactly the same. And the truth is that it's not. So when we say on paper, these two products are exactly the same. So the product on the left is a generic timber aluminium clad property, and the product on the right is one of the systems which we represent and sell. So if we look at the one on the left, it's solid timber with a clip-on aluminium front and one seal located in the middle of the window. If we look at the window on the right, it is timber on the inside, aluminium on the outside. However, between the aluminium and the timber, we've now got insulation. We've got a channel rebate for draining the water away. We've got 3 seals located through the system. We've got bonded glass units. We've got engineered timber within the centre. They are completely different. But the same scenario always arises, and that is that when people request a quote, they use the blanket statement. And when that blanket statement goes out to various different manufacturers who sell all different levels of product, the prices come in and the client goes, I'll go with the cheapest because it's like for like with the most expensive. So the whole point of doing your research in the see, feel, touch scenario is so that you can learn about this, gain an understanding of the products that are on the market, learn about the manufacturers, take note of the ones that you like, take note of the ones that feel really, really high quality, and take the features of the high quality window and use that in your brief when you're requesting a quote from another manufacturer. And what we mean by that is, if the better product has 3 seals, if it has an insulated frame, if it has a specific U value number below 0.8, take all of these into account, write them into your brief, so that when it goes out to that manufacturer, it's really, really easy to define, okay, that one met my brief, that one didn't, that one met my brief, that one didn't. And you can start to exclude the products that don't meet your criteria. And hopefully the benefit is you get 2 products from 2 suppliers which are relatively close in specification, and it will give you some form of like for like price, more like an apples for apples scenario. So let's now talk about the actual physical design of windows. And if you're new to the process and you're just starting out and you're sitting down with your architect looking at the design of the building, this is the time where you can make really, really impactful decisions that are going to affect the end cost. And no matter how expensive your architect is, the time you spend on this process can save you tens of thousands of pounds later down the line when it comes to building your project. There is nothing worse than designing your house on paper and falling in love with it, only to realise at the end of the process that you can't afford to build it. So we're going to talk about various different things that you should keep in mind when you're looking at the design of your house, where the windows are, what size they are, how they're orientated, how it all goes together. So we kind of generally put this into size, height, and how complex the design of the window is, as well as colour. Okay, these are the 4 things that you should really consider when you're designing your product. So first off, size. Size matters, and windows are a very vain product. A wee bit of an innuendo there. It's not about how big you can make the windows anymore. As an industry, we can almost make anything. If you've got the money to spend and you've got the budget, a window manufacturer will make anything that they can. However, that all comes at a price. And the things to consider when you make huge, huge windows are that the heavier the window is, the more people are required to lift it and move it into place. You may have to bring in things like cranes and lifting equipment to move it because of the size and weight. And also, it might require specialist machinery, even just to manufacture the product. So consider your widths and heights very, very carefully when you're looking at your building. Think about the access routes to the building. Think about the path down the side of the property. Could you move a window down there, or you have to bring the window in and over the house with a crane, so that the installation process and general design are a bit more thought out and budget orientated. The other thing to consider that's really, really important these days, specifically in Scotland, is that windows now require in new build scenarios an SER certificate. That means it needs to be certified by a structural engineer. SER stands for the Structural Engineers Registrar. And that is that, you know, whilst a window manufacturer could quite easily make the window that you want, the big thing to consider is, can it be certified? Can you physically put a certificate next to that window that says when it's blowing 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, it's not going to blow in, it's not going to crack. And when you're looking at really, really big units, the big thing to consider is the taller or wider the glass unit, the more that unit's going to flex. So whilst a manufacturer can make it, ask them if they can certify it. Because if they can't certify it, that risk is on you. And it could be a very, very costly one. Some of these windows now, 6 meters tall, you can do up to 15 square meters of glass. So 3 meters wide, 5 meters high, which is colossal. In triple glazing, that's, almost a metric ton in weight to move one glass unit. You have to think about that. Can you move it? Can we lift it? Can we get it into the hole? Because the more complex the elements are surrounding that, the more expensive that window is going to cost, over and above the original cost of the product. So seriously consider that. Heights, the highest of highs. So as a company, a bit jokey here saying that we're scared of heights. We're not. We can do massive windows. However, you should be. In domestic scenarios now, we are seeing more and more windows, or more and more houses, should I say, come through our door where the architects have specified windows at 2.8, 2.9, and 3 meters in height. And don't get me wrong, they look really, really nice architecturally, and they suit these, really nice buildings. However, the big thing to consider is that, like the certification thing we were talking about before, those windows have to be certified. Therefore, you have to put in specific types of glass to those windows to withstand the impact and height that they're going to sit at. So the taller the window and narrower the window, the more the window is going to flex. The shorter the window, then the more robust and less flex is going to be in that unit. So it'll be more resistant to impact, break-in, wind pressure. What we say as a company is, if you keep everything under 2.4 meters in height, generally you're going to benefit from the widest selection of glass units out there in terms of the makeup of the glass unit from various different manufacturers. But when you go over 2.4, so 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, 3 meters, 3.2, onwards and upwards, then that pool of glass that you can choose from becomes narrower. Not only that, it becomes disproportionately more expensive. So we had a job, for example, the other week that came in, and the client's architect had specified that all the windows should have been 3 meters in height. Now, there was no real reason for it to be 3 meters in height, other than the fact that they wanted everything to be floor to ceiling. And it looked stunning, it looked great. However, when we reduced all the windows on the ground floor by 250 mil, which doesn't seem a lot, the glass spec changed dramatically, and it reduced the cost on the project by about 20%. And that's because the difference in moving a glass thickness from 6 mil to 8 mil to 10 mil to 12 mil is huge. it can make a significant difference to the project. So consider heights. Do you really need it that big? You know, stand back, imagine where the view is, look at the view. Will 200 millimeters make a huge difference? Will it be life or death? Probably not. So consider it really, really carefully when you're looking at the design and you're sitting down with your architect. So keep it simple. This is a rule to live by with almost anything that you do in life, to be honest with you. However, a really, really simple way of explaining this is the more complex a window is, the more expensive it is to make. And the more complex the window is, generally, the less energy efficient it becomes. So for me, when I'm designing buildings, or I'm designing fenestration packages or window designs to go into new houses or extensions, my advice to people is always look at the complexity of the window you've designed and let's see how we can simplify it. So it used to be in the 70s and 80s, we had this whole scenario around the living room had this massive window at the front, and then it had these tiny two top hoppers at the top that used to, open out. And if you were like me and slightly vertically challenged, these were a real difficulty to open. And now it's all about stripping that back. So if you've got other windows in the room that you can use and you can make them openable, then fantastic. Do that. Make them openable, and then make the living room window just one large fixed window. It'll be cheaper, it'll be more energy efficient, but more than anything else, you get, like the picture that we've shown here, a massive unobstructed view with less frame, and it can, in some cases, be more of a feature product. A complex window, as I said, it's definitely going to be more expensive. It's going to be less energy efficient. They take longer to manufacture. They're more complex to install. They let in less light because they've got more frame to account for the different type of openings. So by simplifying the layout of your windows, you could potentially save a hell of a lot of money. So think about the layout of your property, think about the rooms themselves, design in a window that you can use for, ventilation and fresh air, and then design in a window which is purely there for light and for a view. The window that's there for the light and the view, make it fixed and as big as you can possibly make it to let in as much light. And the window that's there for ventilation purposes, it can be a small, narrow slot window that fundamentally is going to be nice and simple and easy to produce and easy to install. Colours. This is a minefield subject. The main reason being is you can have pretty much anything you want nowadays. Colour is one of these things that is very much a personal thing. It all kind of boils back down to someone's taste. However, it is really, really important that when you are considering colour, that you try and future-proof things. Future-proof's the way I would best describe it. Don't ostracize yourself in the house over your tastes now, because fundamentally your taste is going to change. And when you're designing a house, you're very much in this designery bubble. You're thinking about the now, and you're looking at things that are, in fashion at this moment. And the perfect example of that is, like flowery carpets, for example, and pink bathroom suites. In the 70s, 60s, and 70s, these things were all the rage, and it was really, really fashionable. Don't get me wrong, some of those features are now coming back in. But when you look at a picture from that period of time and you see the big flowery carpet in the living room with the brown couch, you can pinpoint it to a place and time. Whereas when you look at some of these buildings and designs that are are timeless in their appearance and like fashion icons, you generally find that they're quite neutral. And that means they don't age. They don't age as much. And I think you can fall into the trap with colour, creating something that is not going to age well. So when we talk about colour, there's a few things to consider. So most manufacturers have standard colours. So within the bank of standard colours, you can choose whatever you want, and it's not really going to affect the price or cost of the window. So I would always ask a manufacturer, number one, what is your standard colour? Can I have a look at the standard colours and see if there's something there that you like or it's close to what you like? And if that's the case, then you've cracked it. It's not going to affect the cost of the product, and you can work with it. If you go out with that, some manufacturers charge 5, 10, 12% to go for something more bespoke. So you always want to see the range that's available and try and work within the standardized range so that you can maximize your budget. If you're considering putting a color on the inside of your window, you can now have any color you want. And we've done them all: pink, green, blue, orange, purple. We've done nurseries and schools, and you can imagine the different color options that are available nowadays. However, when you are looking at that, you almost want to eliminate timber aluminium from your product range or your product selection. So, as I said, we're massive fans of timber aluminium. As someone who's came from architecture, I'm a huge advocate for it, but it is expensive. And it's generally expensive because you're paying for a natural product. And personally, for me, timber aluminium looks great, or timber on the inside specifically of a window looks fantastic when it's timber. Now, you can have various different tones of timber, you can have various different stains on timber, but fundamentally, when you look at that window, you want to know that it is made of timber, right? If you then paint that, you've paid the premium to have, in some cases, hand-finished timber, beautifully sanded back, smooth product. Then you cover it in paint and you can't see the timber that's underneath it. So for me, if you are looking at putting a colour on the inside of your product, knock timber aluminium out the park. Don't look at it, because it's going to cost you extra to have the paint on top of the nice timber finish. But you then open up the market to being able to save yourself some money and get the customization. So if you went for aluminium, you can powder coat that almost any colour. With PVC now, and PVC aluminium clads, you can have decker foils, you can have, oaks, you can have carbon fibres, you can have stone, you can have all these textures added to the inside of a PVC window using the printing technology that's out there. So by eliminating the timber, you open your colour spectrum up and you can potentially save money. And the last thing to bear in mind is, keep it simple. Blacks and whites are making a comeback. And white specifically goes with everything. And the scenario I would use here is we've worked with a number of clients over the years who specified pretty bold colours on the inside of their house. And over the years, their taste has changed. They've decided that they want to redecorate after 5 years, or maybe when they were going through the build process, they ran out a bit of money and they didn't get the kitchen that they really wanted at the time. However, they went for the colour on the inside of the window and they had this vision in their head. It then comes to buy this dream kitchen and they don't take into consideration that the windows are a dark grey or a blue or a green. So when they go for a coloured kitchen, they get this clash between the two colours. And when you have white windows or you have black aluminium frames, they generally go with everything. You don't have to consider it. You don't have to worry about it. it's just part of the building. So consider that when you're looking at colours, because it does make a big difference. And again, it's another one of these things that can either cost you money later down the line or save you money up front. So think about standard colours within the supplier's range, and think about how neutral or bold you want it to be, and use the colour selection or colour that you have in your head to narrow down the products that you're going to look at. So if it's going to be painted or if you're going to be coloured, put timber aluminium to the side in the short term and look at what options you have available in PVC aluminium clad, and aluminium. If you're heart set on timber because you're a purist, and you really want to gain the energy efficiency elements of it, and the fact it's a bit more ecological, then kudos to you, definitely go for it, but it's going to cost a bit more money in the long run. So as I said before, when we touched on the colour thing, certain colours and looks drive you towards various different front runners for that product achieving that look and aesthetic. And the main ones in the marketplace are aluminium, UPVC aluminium, timber, and then timber aluminium. And we'll put together like a really simple, pros and cons list for them all. There is loads of pros and loads of cons for every type of system, but these for us are the main ones. So the first product line that we want to talk about is aluminium windows, and from the picture you can see here, generally, very modern aesthetic, slimline. So aluminium for us consistently offers the slimmest of visible sightlines, specifically on bifolds and sliding door systems. That means that the element of frame that you see in in terms of the relation to glass is going to be the slimmest. So you're going to get the nicest, sharpest, slimmest look by going for an aluminium product. Due to the product being constructed from metal, it's generally stronger than most profiles. Therefore, it's good for oversized units, both in height and width. So there's less flex in an aluminium frame. It can be extruded in infinite lengths. Whereas when you've got things like PVC and you've got timber, you're limited by timber, the nature of the tree, how good the timber is. With PVC, how long you can make a single extrusion in before it starts to warp or bend. Whereas aluminium's pretty consistent. It's a man-made product. It goes through an extruder, and you can generally make it, any width and any height. Also, because of the nature of how it's extruded and put through the dies, you can add various different chambers in it, which add to its strength and allow you to add some insulation into it as well. The downside of aluminium is if it's not used right or in the correct setting, it can look quite industrial. Factories, schools, these types of things, they generally all have aluminium windows because they're pretty hard wearing. They stand up to a lot of abuse. So there is this industrial type look associated with aluminium products when you bring it up. Aluminium as a product is also slightly harder to make energy efficient, mainly because it's the same material inside as it is on the outside. So it's really, really important that when you're looking at aluminium products, you want to consider if that product has a thermal break in the middle, which separates the outside from the inside. The other thing is that with aluminium manufacturers, it's generally the extrusion is made by a company, and the window is then made by another. Okay, so when you see the manufacturer's pictures of products, they're usually stunning, oversized, they look great. However, the window is only as good as the person who's fabricating it. So if we take a manufacturer like Cortizo for as an example, Cortizo makes some stunning products, ultra slim line, really, really good. But there are literally thousands of manufacturers of Cortizo product out there today, some of who are fantastic, others who are not very well educated and don't put together a good product. So if you are looking at a profile type, so Reynars, Cortizo, I can't think of any other ones at once. Seniors architectural systems. Um, Try and speak to the agent who represents the profile extruder, and then ask them who they would recommend you go to based on your type of project and product to have it manufactured. So it's a careful thing to consider. You know, profiles are from systems houses. Windows are manufactured by independent manufacturers when it comes to aluminium. So just be careful when you're looking at that. Don't fall in love with the product until you've seen how it's made and put together. UPVC and UPVC aluminium. Now, UPVC gets an abhorrent name, as I touched on before, and that's namely because of the 80s, the hard sell, the shiny suit salesman that comes round and they'll sit in your house for, you know, 15 hours, start at 40 grand, phone their manager, and then before you know it, you've bought new windows for your house at 5 grand, and all of a sudden £35,000 has just been lost in the abyss. So people associate UPVC with that reputation in the UK. However, throughout the rest of Europe, that's not been the case. Also, the PVC product that is available in the UK or manufactured in the UK is completely different to that is manufactured and developed in Europe. The quality is different, the way it's put together is different. So, don't think UPVC and think, Everest, Anglian, stack 'em high, sell 'em cheap product. There's a different world out there, and I think this picture that I took out one of our brochures perfectly sums it up. You can make UPVC look fantastic these days, and generally the quality, fit, and finish is poles apart from what was getting produced in the 80s and 90s. So with UPVC and UPVC aluminium, the big thing obviously is price point. It is going to be one of the more cheaper options out there because it's a man-made product. The process can be, fairly automated in factories with machinery as opposed to people. There's not as much hand finishing required. Therefore, the cost to produce the product is a lot lower. It's got nowadays an almost unlimited range of finishes. So with PVC, there's still limitations because it relies on a foil being applied to the inside and outside of the product to get your colour or finish that you want. When we talk about UPVC and aluminium, on the other hand, the aluminium on the outside can be powder coated to any RAL colour you wish. It can have mock timber applied to it, carbon fibre, anodized, gold, bronze, any type of metal you want, to be honest with you, to give that window a completely unique look. The only thing that would differentiate it from any other product is how it looks on the inside. The other huge thing to consider is that if you are pairing a UPVC aluminium window with a timber aluminium window, they will look identical on the outside. So what this kind of allows you to do is almost self-cost engineer your projects. So you might have a window which your heart's set on being oak. It's maybe in the living room, a nice feature element. You can retain that window and it's going to be expensive, but it will look stunning. It will go with your floor or whatever oak features you've got in the building. And then for the other windows in the property, you could easily use a PVC aluminium clad product because externally they will look exactly the same because they're both aluminium. So the profiles will be the same. So you can almost cost engineer your own project in some cases. So it's a really nice thing to be able to do. The downside, as we said, UPVC still has a stigma attached to it that stems from the white gold era of the 80s. And unfortunately, in the UK, I think we'll be hard pushed to lose that, certainly over the next 6 to 12 months. But the game is changing. the producers out there are up in their game in terms of the quality that they put out. So it's something worth considering. And for us, definitely, you should be looking at PVC clad if you are building, designing, or renovating just now, because it will give you the most bang for the buck. The last thing we touched on when we were talking about PVC was the colour printing technology that's available nowadays. And Internorm, who are one of the manufacturers that we represent, can now do almost any type of timber on the inside of your windows. And it's not that horrible kind of golden oak look that you used to have back in the 80s, or cherry, or Beck Brown was the other one that was popular. Nowadays, you can choose some really, really natural and realistic timbers, as well as ceramic finishes like concrete and things like that as well. So your options out there are now unlimited. Timber aluminium, which is, top seated product, based on price point. Timber aluminium's, or timber inside, aesthetically is always going to feel warm. It's very, very natural looking. It goes with, almost any material. If you boil it back down to the standard timber finish on the inside, and everybody loves the look of timber. It's a timeless thing, and from the picture that you can see in the background here, if that picture could have been taken 10, 15 years ago, it would still look just as good and just as sharp now. Obviously, timber as well, you can paint it whatever colour you want. There's no limit at all. If you don't like the look of it, you can change it. So there's an element of flexibility there. So that's the two big drivers as far as timber aluminium or timber inside is concerned. In most cases, timber windows have a wider profile than PVC and alu products. So what we mean by that is that, a timber aluminium window is naturally going to look a bit chunkier than something like a PVC or an aluminium. So if sight lines and slim aesthetics are important to you, then, you're going to have to consider that timber aluminium might not be the right choice. And obviously, as we've touched on before, timber aluminium is going to be the most expensive of the options out there as far as your window selection is concerned. So, not that we want to kind of delve into it too much. There is a kind of salesy element to this. We are a window company after all. And of all the products that we spoke about, we have brands that represent those products specifically. So as a company, we represent 3 brands in the UK. Internorm, who are an Austrian manufacturer, Daco, who are a Polish manufacturer, and Q4, who are based out of Romania. And each of them specialise in their own specific product ranges. So as far as Internorm goes, they're Europe's largest window brand. They're still recognised as the leader in innovation and technology, so bringing in things like smart home integration, blinds, electric lock-in, fingerprint recognition technology for opening doors. They're right at the front of that, but more importantly, they've been making windows for over 90 years. So they are, renowned as being the best of the best. There's not much they haven't seen or done. And there's been a lot of firsts for them, in terms of the first PVC window. They made it 50 years ago, long before the 80s. So they're very, very big on what they do there. As I said, they have 3 main core product ranges: UPVC, UBVC clad, and timber aluminium windows. And as a brand, or as their representative in Scotland, we sell all 3 of them. So Daco are a Polish-based fabrication house. So as I touched on before, these are one of the fabricators who buy in profile from other profile houses, and then they fabricate it themselves. And the product that they put out the door is branded Daco. However, quality-wise, and the product that they put together, it is exceptional. I mean, the stuff that they produce now is unreal. And from the Daco range, we specialise in pushing their wood products, so that's timber inside and timber outside. So fantastic for traditional type buildings, or builds that have got a more traditional aesthetic. They do a all PVC system, so PVC inside, PVC outside, which is available in dual colours. No surprise, it's the best selling product that they do. It's one of the best selling products that we do as well. However, extremely energy efficient, and fantastic quality. And they also do an all aluminium system, so aluminium inside, aluminium outside. A below 8 week lead time on this product. Fantastic warranties, triple glazed as standard, extremely energy efficient, great price point over some of the other manufacturers out there as well. Daco's fast becoming, an extremely popular product in our offering as a company. And last but not least, Q4. So Q4 are a Romanian fabrication house. Again, very similar to Daco. They basically buy in the profile from a profile house, they make it themselves, and then it's shipped out branded as Q4. They specialise in aluminium systems, specifically slimline systems. So we do a lot with their Core 70 range, their slimline sliding doors, which are all triple glazed. They achieve the Passive House certification standard. If you are looking for a kind of truly bespoke architectural slimline product, then Q4 is one of those manufacturers that you definitely want to be considering. And from these three products, we've pulled together a range which is suitable for everybody. Budget wise, we carry all of the different systems, so PVC, PVC, PVC aluminium, timber, timber, timber aluminium, and then all aluminium product. So with regards to look, very, very slim to chunky and traditional, we have everything covered in that scenario. With regards to budget, again, that range of product means that we can cater for the commercial market, i.e. housing developers or contractors looking to do a development who, performance is important, warranty is important, quality is important, so they don't get callbacks and comebacks. But also they need to consider profit. They need to make money on the product as well, the end product that they're selling. So we cover that with our entry-level systems, right through to people who really want a bespoke scenario. So, they want to choose a very, very specific timber on the inside of their window. They want to select their handle. They want to have a coloured glass. They want to have a motif put on it. They want to design the front door. We're trying to cover every single eventuality, price point, budget, design, performance, aesthetics. Our range of systems does that, and with our knowledge of the construction industry as a whole, our technical background from being architects and architectural technologists, also helps. And we've got real world experience of building energy efficient homes. Steph's input from his passive house background is invaluable, because every time we look at a house, no matter if it's a really, really bog standard extension, just a couple of windows and a door at the back of the house, or it is a 8-bedroom eco home, ultra modern, we look at everything the same way. How are we going to get that window to that opening? What is it going to be installed into? How are we going to install it? And what are the drivers for that product being in that location and used on that building? We're going to bring that to the table on everything we do. We've got a huge range of content out there. If you're watching this video, you can click back and go back to our YouTube channel, and you'll see literally, I think we're almost at 100 videos now, between product demonstrations, examples of installs that we've been on. We do a vlog where we take you around the jobs that we've been on. We take you to the suppliers. We've got all that online and available for you to look at. You can follow it on YouTube, Instagram, and we've got a TikTok channel as well where you can have a look through everything there. And more importantly, if you have made it to the end of what is usually quite, a 45 to an hour presentation, if you've made it to the end of this and you are still interested in our products and there's something here that I've mentioned that you want to ask about or inquire about, then please send us a message, send us an email, leave a comment below, share it to someone that you might think could be interested in this type of presentation, and just get in touch. We're more than happy to help. This type of presentation is out here to educate people. That's our number one goal, is to educate people on the products and what can be done now in the industry. So we're always happy to help. And until the next one, we'll catch you later on. Thanks. Bye bye.